Now, just the name Glenfarclas is often enough to cause a little tear to form in the corner of any malt aficionado's eye. Well, be prepared to cry buckets as I welcome my guest today, Mr. George S. Grant, a member of the 6th generation of the Grant family to own and operate the iconic Glenfarclas distillery. George, welcome.
Thank you very much, Lee. Thank you for having me.
Well, I think first things first, peculiar situation we're in. We weren't expecting a lockdown, and when it came, we might have been a little unprepared. So what whiskies did you get locked down with? What did you have on your shelf when things changed?
Luckily, I do have quite a wide array of whiskies lying around. So I certainly have a few in the house, and obviously the distillery is only 100 meters away, so it's easy enough to go and grab some more. But I do have a few sort of just sitting beside me at the moment. I've got a bottle of 105. I have a lovely bottle of 40-year-old, and I have one of our family cask editions as well. So it's it's always good just having a dram or two lying around that you can pick up at any given time.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And you've got those drams of varying strengths as well, depending on your mood.
Well, that's it. It's always nice to have a lighter whiskey a little bit earlier in the day, and a nice cask strength whiskey to end the evening is always a good way to go.
So, how have things changed for you in the last few weeks?
I've definitely become much more tech savvy, shall we say. I've definitely never used so much online video or online different aspects before. And what has been interesting with it is the fact that every single country seems to use a different format for doing these online tastings. But it has been fun. It's definitely giving you much bigger audiences, I suppose. Whereas before, normally when you go and do presentations or tastings, it's either for a small group of people or sort of a maximum maybe 100 people. But some of the tastings we're doing now, we're getting up to 3,500, 4,000 people, watching a live presentation. But then you're also seeing much more people getting involved. And what was nice, I did a tasting last night with a group of people in North America, and that all came about because I did a tasting earlier that week, and somebody on that had logged into the tasting, and then they just sort of asked during the presentation, would you mind doing one for us? So you are seeing things being sort of added onto it. But I think it really has shown the amazing people that do enjoy and drink whiskey, because they are getting much more involved in it as well. People are always asking you, when's the next one you're doing, or can I log in and see this, or what else can we possibly be doing? And what was really nice as well, the number of people that you are seeing on these, on your screen, but they're all drinking the whiskey as well. So it's nice the fact that all these people do already have a bottle in their house just now.
Yeah, it's a nice thing to sort of, I guess, see the size of your audience. And I think one reason why Glenfarclas is so popular is you managed to keep it in the family for over 150 years. Is there some secret to, or actually any, how should I say it? Is there a secret for keeping a business in the family over the roller coaster of time and changing generations?
Just say no. You do also get an awful lot of offers and things, but you can only sell something once. I mean, it's definitely not going to be an easy road. I mean, when you do look at the history of Glenfarclas, or the history of single malt, it really only is the last 20, 25 years where you have seen such a huge rise in people drinking single malt, or the rise of the popularity of it. And in real terms, it's only been a really short period of time where you've actually seen whiskey companies make serious amounts of money. And we've been, if you look through the history of Glenfarclas and the timeline of whiskey in that aspect, we've been through sort of 7 peaks and troughs. There's always been that boom and bust scenario of the whiskey industry. You'd see 7 years of massive growth, and then you'd see like 20 years of highs. But at the moment, we're in year 16, 17 of rises every year. It's just something that is absolutely unprecedented. And then we've been hit with this, but the resilience of people behind it, I think it's going to bring us out stronger at the other end too.
Talking of the history of it and the resilience and the people, have the Grant family found their way to forgiving the Pattisons yet?
So, no comment on that one. I mean, you do sort of look through the history of the Pattersons as well, and you know, how they ever thought about training 100 parrots to advertise their product. You know, you think, how did anybody ever think that that was a good idea?
I don't know. I mean, is it really not? I think it could work today, so long as those parrots got their own, well, Instagrams and Twitter channels.
I suppose it's true, but I mean, it really was they were certainly ahead of their time, shall we say?
I would say so. Now, I wonder, when it comes to, I guess, keep coming back to the Grants as a family, as if it's some kind of unified force, but does every member of the Grant family enjoy a dram, or is it maybe just a Christmas thing sometimes?
No, I mean, we all definitely do you know, enjoy a whiskey. Is it something you do drink every single day? No. I mean, I definitely probably drink a whiskey when I'm working. I probably don't enjoy it quite as much, you know, as a social aspect anymore, because you do see it as something a bit different. You know, you do enjoy a beer, you enjoy a glass of wine, you enjoy a gin and tonic. You know, but I think that's the whole thing about being in the spirits industry or being in the alcohol industry. You do need to enjoy different things that other people sort of have as well.
So,
and follow on to that as well. I mean, all our distributors around the world, you know, they don't just sell whiskey; they will sell wine or they'll sell champagne, and so you do get to enjoy the other products that they have too.
absolutely, and sometimes bring them together if you manage to find a cask that's unusual. But of course, the sherry cask is really king with you guys.
It certainly is. Yeah, I mean, it's we've been very fortunate. We've been with the same sherry bodega since 1988.
Wow.
Jose Miguel Martin. You know, we've been very fortunate. They're a family-owned company as well. And but you know, since then we've had a really good, constant, steady supply of very, very good casks. You know, prior to that, you were just buying a handful of casks here and there.
So actually, having the consistency of the supplier, do you start to get a feel for the casks and a bit of predictability? Is there a certain tell that a cask gives off when it's ready, or is it still a roll of the dice each time?
You think that you managed to get a much more consistent side of it, but I mean, one of the favorite tastings that I did was actually in Germany, maybe 10, 12 years ago. It was 5 casks of 1967 from memory, but there were 5 consecutive cask numbers.
Okay.
And they were all the casks were from the same supplier. They were all filled on the same day. They were all filled within a 15-minute window of each other. But you'd think that you were drinking 5 completely different whiskeys. You know, they were all filled on the same day. The casks come from the same person. They've been stored in the same warehouse. But there was 2 whiskeys there. I mean, 3 of them were kind of similar to each other. But then you had 2 that were just absolutely completely different. I mean, you just really don't know each time. You know, it can be the fact that, okay, there may have been like a knot in that one stave, or it may have been like a bit of the bung had fallen into the cask. You know, there may be something that has changed a little bit of the flavor, and there may have been a little bit more air getting into it. You know, the things that you just don't really know that can sort of change the makeup of the whiskey, I suppose.
I think that's more encouraging to know that, because it just means that we'll never be able to completely figure out what to do with a whiskey. Each one is always going to have its own thumbprint, and we're not going to be able to ever sort of do that en masse and know what we're going to get.
But what's interesting behind it as well is, I mean, it's a relatively new aspect too, because prior to that we didn't used to not really drink single casks. You know, it's only something that more sort of recently that's come about. You know, normally we would vat all the whiskey together, but now people are wanting to drink single casks. Yeah. You are noticing that different flavor of different years coming through.
Traveling is obviously something that you do in your capacity to represent the distillery.
Normally.
Well, normally, I guess, yeah. Do you find that, well, what are the responses like around the world when people find out what you do? Like, you may be in a conversation and then drop in, well, okay, Glenfarclas Distillery, yeah, I'm kind of responsible for the whiskey that comes out of them. Do different places have different reactions?
Definitely. I mean, you definitely have people that are some people are sort of in awe of it.
Mm.
Especially because, as you said earlier, there's so few family-owned whiskey companies there.
Mm.
So to have that sort of name and connection behind it definitely does shock an awful lot of people, I suppose.
Mm.
And the responses are always good too. I mean, it's people do sort of laugh as well, because I mean, there's certain countries that you're almost looked upon as like a rock star.
Mm.
You turn up places and there'll be life-size cardboard cutouts of you everywhere, or everyone's wearing T-shirts with your picture on it. It's quite an interesting scenario in some places.
Yeah, I wish I could say I was immune, but no, I've got my Glenfarclas bobble hat that comes out every winter. That was a very good move. That.
That was always fun as well, because when we first did them, it was the managing director of Paul Roger, my UK distributor. He was walking down the street in London, and somebody was walking towards him with a bobble hat on, and there he is trying to take a picture, without anybody seeing, of this guy in a bobble hat. It was just fun, because you do suddenly see the reach that these bottles do actually have.
Mm. Now, being, as you say, 100 meters down the road from the distillery, it means you have a probably relatively uninterrupted supply of the whiskey, which means you also could maybe get a little more creative with it, since there's always going to be more. So do you have any unconventional uses for whiskey that you'd like to share?
I wouldn't say really we have any unconventional uses. I mean, obviously we've been doing the same as a lot of other places. We've been using it as sanitizer more recently, but it's we've window de-icer is always a good one during the winter, I suppose. But no, I mean, it's people always say Glenfarclas doesn't really experiment or do anything with their whiskey. I mean, but I would definitely say we've experimented an awful lot.
Mm.
But it was years and years and years ago, and we're still experimenting now. But I mean, because we don't finish any of our whiskey, if we do experiment putting our whiskey into any different casks, the products you take 10, 15 years before you actually see any difference in it. So,
do you have a particular favorite expression yourself?
So people always do say, what would your desert island whiskey be?
Yeah.
For me, it's the 15-year-old. I like it. It's a little bit stronger. It's a 46% alcohol. For me, it's got a little bit more the sherry tones coming through on it. It's still got the youthfulness and I suppose the aggression of like a younger whiskey, but then it's also got the depth and the finesse of an older whiskey coming through there as well. Yes, I love drinking the 10-year-old, 12-year-old, but once you've had a couple of them, you do want something that's got a little bit more meat on their bones.
Mm-hmm.
I'm currently drinking a 40-year-old expression at the moment, which is fine. But I certainly could.
It's lovely to be able to say, 40-year-old, it's fine, yeah.
But the nice thing for me about the 40-year-old is, I can have a dram or two of it, but it's certainly not a whiskey you can certainly have, more than that, because it is such a heavy, big, rich, powerful whiskey.
Wonderful. So really, just to bring us home, looking forward, once the lockdown is over and beyond, what are the plans on the horizon for Glenfarclas?
Well, we're continuing to expand, I suppose. We are producing more. Well, we're supposed to be producing more than we ever have been. We're certainly laying down more whiskey for ourselves. In the last 4 years, we've built 8 new warehouses that we're constantly filling up with whiskey at the moment. We are also seeing much more reach for the whiskey as well. We're currently in over 100 different markets around the world. And what the different aspects of different positions that each country's in. You do have your old traditional markets, the European markets, which maybe are a little bit more set in their ways. But then you've got the new developing market, for us, like places in South America, parts of Asia, where you still are doing the almost like back to basics, where you are sort of teaching people the difference between a single malt and a blended whiskey. Or then you have you're much more aficionados that do want to know the exact phenol content of the barley that's gone into this particular whiskey that you've made. So you do just have to remember each time you are speaking to different customer bases what exactly they're actually looking for.
Mm.
New things. No, we're constantly just trying to maintain stocks in different countries.
Yeah.
We're very passionate at Glenfarclas about keeping an age statement on the bottle.
Mm.
We always want to have that 30-year-old, 40-year-old mark on the actual label. If we do run out of certain ages at any given time, then we'll take that whiskey off the marketplace for a bit of time.
Mm-hmm.
But the nice thing about whiskey, all it takes is a little bit more time, and then you have more stock of that particular age coming through.
Yep, absolutely. And are there any countries where the stock is running out a little quicker than others? Where does Glenfarclas do well around the world?
We're certainly seeing the European market's always been like a very strong point for the Glenfarclas market. Mm-hmm. Germany, France markets, UK market to a big degree more recently. Obviously, Asian market has been growing an awful lot in the last few years. Mm-hmm. But we've seen a massive rise in the US market in the last 3 years. We've seen sales there rise 300-400%. But it is just, do we ever run out of any certain years? No. But you can definitely push your distributor or push your customer base to drink a certain mark. It's we can look at our stocks and we know how much we've got of different things. Mm. So whereas before, we really wanted people to be drinking 21-year-old because we've got lots of stock of that. But now, we maybe don't have as much as 21-year-old, but we've got more 25-year-old or more 15-year-old. So you can definitely push your distributor or consumers to a certain age, shall we say. So it's just managing your expectations and managing their expectations.
Oh, fantastic. Well, George Grant, thank you very much indeed. And I guess I'm leaving you in the enviable position of being 100 meters away from a Scotch distillery during a time when we're not allowed to move much further than 100 meters.
I mean, what is quite nice about here is, where we are located at Glenfarclas, there is just half a dozen houses. We sort of live in isolation anyway, so it's not too much difference for what is sort of out there and what's sort of happening. And especially now that at least the weather is nice, we're able to walk up on the hill a bit. So there's some nice aspects to it as well. And thankfully, my children started online learning yesterday. Nice. So at least that keeps them a little bit more entertained as well.
Perfect. But I'm sure you'll be looking forward to welcoming visitors back to the distillery again soon.
I'll be delighted to welcome visitors back to the distillery. It's so sad because obviously we were supposed to have the Spirit of Speyside Whisky Festival coming up in the next couple of weeks. Unfortunately that has been cancelled because it's such a huge part of what has become the single malt calendar. Mm-hmm. You were seeing 10,000-15,000 visitors a year coming to visit Speyside during that period of time. They're not coming. Of course that's going to have a knock-on effect for us. We've done special bottlings for it, but all your bars, restaurants, hotels, that is their really big peak business time. It's just gone. I think laterally, once this lockdown does finish, I think it's going to take a long time before we do see an awful lot more international travellers. But I certainly hope that you're going to see more UK people coming up to Scotland. They may not be as confident about going away to visit the foreign climes, but come and see Scotland. Come and visit a distillery. Come and visit Glenfarclas.
Yeah, do it. Absolutely, there's a warm welcome waiting up here.
It really, really is. Especially today, I'm looking out the window. It's blue skies. I think there's one cloud on the horizon. It's just an absolutely beautiful day today.
Oh well, a bit under a cloud today, but we'll have our time in the sun soon in Edinburgh as well. Wonderful. Excellent. Well, thank you so much again.
No, thank you very much. Thank you for having me, and good luck to Cask 88 with their ongoing TV show.
Thank you.